Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, friends, readers, listeners, and viewers. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is FallenAngels.tv. I changed the format of the show this evening. I was going to bring forth information for a lot of the new listeners to tie all the loose ends as far as the Nephilim and the giants and their connections to the seed of Cain, but I have forwarded that show, moved it 2 weeks away so that I will cover all that information later, but I wanted to touch upon some pressing information. I received a call earlier today from John the Baptist, and he informed me that Syria was attacked by Israel. And for those that don't know, there's a lot of biblical prophecies that are associated and connected to this event, and so I wanted to speak upon that, but also to bring forth this information because, as I said, this is something that is now new and ongoing, and it could possibly be a domino or a catalyst for a greater conflagration in the Middle East. And we know that Iran is is backing both the rebels in Syria, some of the rebels in Syria, and Hezbollah, one of the so-called terrorist groups that are associated with Lebanon that has been at war with Israel for quite a number of years. And it wasn't so long ago, I believe it was in 2006, that Israel attacked Lebanon in such a way that they tried to completely annihilate and wipe out the forces of Hezbollah, but they have resurfaced, reformed, and rearmed, and we are now back in a precarious situation. And so I'm going to read a couple news stories and then tie this also to another event that occurred in Iran, which not a lot of people have heard about or are talking about. But before we get into that, I want to thank all of the listeners for those of you that stayed up late night to join me on Revolution Radio last night from 12 a.m. to 2 a.m., which was a very late night for me and long and enduring, and I'm quite exhausted today. However, the show went really well. I was able to bring forth a lot of information. I did not give a lot of quotations as far as backing it with, source, but I was able to move through the story and to cover a great deal of the information and to bring it out in such a way that I was able to go through the First World Age and the Second World Age and cover the full summation of what I consider the Genesis timeline, which is a part of my sixth book, Sons of God, Who We Are and Why We're Here. One of the other blessings about doing that show last night was that January 29th was the official release date for that book as far as tape publishing, and it is now going to be made widely available in many of the bookstores across the country, and Amazon worldwide is now going to be carrying and making it available as well. So you can purchase and order it from the various online sources, Barnes and Noble, different internet portals such as those. So, and again, I appreciate everybody's support and your fellowship and for sharing with me your questions and your testimony. And I will be covering the questions that you send me. I want to especially give a shout out to Lori Mellon and for the questions that she has brought forth. They're not going to be appropriate to this show, so I'm going to save them for the show next Saturday, this upcoming Saturday, which will be the first 90 minutes of the Truth Talk 4 that I did with Professor Truth on my new manuscript, my seventh book, which is not yet even completed, but the hour is so late. We have, things like this occurring, so I'm not even sure I'll be able to get to be able to print it. And so I just wanted to make the information available to you so that it can affect you in a way that hopefully will bring you to remembrance and help you and assist you in discernment, and also in empowering you to be responsible for faith and works and doing your part in, making yourself and preparing yourself for salvation and eternal life and for those things that are coming. Let me check the chat room real quick. Welcome, everybody. Oh, Jazz, just so you know, yes, the Revolution Radio will be archiving the show, and they will be turning it into a video format and releasing it on YouTube. And when they do that, I will make that show available and post a link on my Facebook and as well as on the fallenangels.tv website, so that those of you that missed it, because I know a lot of you probably did, especially if you're East Coast like me, that was most would not stay up that late to catch the show. And so The archives will be made available. And I want to announce that there's a good possibility that I will be joining Hijacker for 1 hour once a week, 12 p.m. to 1 a.m. on some particular day that has yet to be determined. But the information and the response that we got and the feedback that we received from those of you that were able to make the show was very positive, and so they've invited me to come back and to be able to share the information in a slower fashion where we can back up the sources and provide you the quotations so that you can go read them and study them for yourself. And so, welcome, Son of Yahweh, Jazz, Truth Now, all the guests. I appreciate all of you. I'm going to go ahead and go into this story. I think it's pressing and it's necessary. And again, this is something that just occurred today. Also, I wanted you to know that John the Baptist and Jonathan Kleck are currently also speaking about this, and we're covering this issue as well. So you may want to check the archives of their show as well. This story is not very long at all. It's called Israel Attacks Arms Convoy in Syria, U.S. Confirms. I believe this is from the LA Times. To give you the lowdown on what happened, it says this. This is January 30th, 4:31 p.m. Israeli warplanes struck targets Wednesday outside of Damascus, the Syrian capital, according to Syrian and Western reports, and rising international fear that President Bashar Assad will lose control of his nation's stockpiles of chemical and advanced weapons. A Western official who spoke on condition of anonymity said the airstrike hit a truck convoy believed to be carrying anti-aircraft weapons for Hezbollah in neighboring Lebanon. The shipment was thought to have included Russian-made SA-17 missiles, and if such weapons were obtained by the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah, it could weaken Israel's regional military power and hinder its ability to launch airstrikes in Lebanon. Syrian state media, while also reporting an Israeli airstrike, denied that the target was a weapons shipment for Hezbollah. Instead, it claimed that a military research facility and adjacent buildings had been destroyed. It said that 2 people were killed and 5 were injured in the dawn attack. Syria did not say what kind of research took place at the center in Jamraya, northwest of the capital. Israeli officials declined to comment on the reports, but such a strike would mark Israel's most aggressive military action in Syria during the nearly 2-year uprising against Assad's rule. Israeli officials have been sounding alarms in recent days that Syria's weapons might fall into the hands of militant groups that could use them against Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu raised that concern during a cabinet meeting this week, and officials have repeatedly said that any transfer of Syria's dangerous weapons outside the country might trigger a military response. Israel had tried to steer clear of the Syrian conflict, fearing that any action it might take, such as supporting opposition forces or launching a military strike, could backfire or become propaganda fodder for Damascus. Syrian officials have long charged that U.S. and Zionist forces are behind the rebellion against Assad. Each side in the Syrian conflict has portrayed itself as an implacable enemy of Israel. There is also fear that an Israeli strike could draw others into the Syrian conflict. Syria's close allies said this week that any foreign attack against Syria would be regarded as an attack on Iran. In addition to chemical weapons, Israeli officials have been particularly worried about Syria's stockpile of SA-17 anti-aircraft missiles. In recent weeks, Israelis warned that Assad is losing control over his chemical weapons and that military action might be taken. Amid the renewed warnings, Israelis living in the northern part of the country near the borders with Syria and Lebanon have been swarming into post office and other distribution centers to pick up government-issued gas masks. Israel relocated 2 of its 5 Iron Dome missile interception systems to the northern part of the country. And though military officials said the move was not related to a fear of impending attacks. I also want to cite that there is video that has been released where Russia has threatened to attack Israel and Israel and the United States if the U.S. led a coalition against Syria. And so the stakes are high here. And as I said, this could be a domino effect to a wider conflagration, which could entrench us into another unnecessary war as far as, we're broke, we're overextended, our military, we have our armed forces, those especially the Marines that are ground troops, they are dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder to such a degree that we have many, many veterans killing themselves every week. We're averaging 8 to 16 military soldiers committing suicide weekly. And there's at least one daily that is taking their lives. And so there's something seriously wrong with that picture. And our military is overextended to such a degree that they even have these stopgap measures, these stop-loss measures, to where they're not allowing them to get out of the military. And those that are of the reserves, they're being called up to active duty. We also know that the National Guard has been sent out of our country and has been, sent into foreign places, which was, contrary to what the whole reason for the National Guard were put into place was to help in case of tragedy, in case of storms and natural disasters in America on domesticated ground. But now we find that most of the military forces and the reserves have been sent out of country, and there's really nobody protecting us on the home front. And so we are vulnerable. But those of you that have studied the New World Order, that know about the plans to bring America down, because there is a plan, they're not trying to hide any of this. This is all part of the financial collapse as well. That the reason they are overextending our military and also have weakened our military over the years through a policy called the Base Realignment and Closure Act, which has, closed down a number of our military strongholds and turned them basically into empty FEMA camps that are being manned by United Nations peacekeeping troops. We're vulnerable, and we're weakened, and this is all being done on purpose. And so at some point, the chaos, the violence is going to come home. We still have an open border policy to where illegal immigrants as well as organized terrorists are being led into the country and are like sleeper cells. We have a number of terrorist sleeper cells that are just awaiting for certain situations, certain scenario, and for certain alarm to be sounded for them to commit the acts of atrocities and to commit the terrorism that they've been instilled in silently led into this country to do. And so the violence is coming home, people, at some point. All right. Well, I want to cover one other story as well. For those that don't know, we have the American Special Forces have been inside Iran covertly working to sabotage the nuclear program and to put it back to such a degree that they don't have to have an open conventional war and military airstrikes to such a degree where it would be open war with Iran. And so WorldNet Daily has reported on a possible covert action taking place which has caused the destruction of one of Iran's nuclear facilities. And there's going to be repercussions to pay for this as well, because the United States and Israel are being fingered for this attack. It wasn't an accident. There was an explosion that took place. And, of course, we're going to be targeted. And it has been openly announced a few months back that these kind of covert tactics and these kind of covert missions are to be taking place. And you know, so who's to blame? We don't know. But, of course, America will be blamed, Israel will be blamed, and it will be utilized as further catalyst to stoke World War III, which, if you don't know, Henry Kissinger also just came out recently, and we know that he's a high-level globalist, a high-level Bilderberger elite, and he has called for, in this year, a nuclear confrontation with Iran, an open war. And so is he letting us know that this is the year and that this is the spring, this is the summer for these events to unfold? Who knows? All we know is that, you know, everything has been set up, and the propaganda, the news, the mainstream news sources, all of them have been stoking a war with Iran for a number of years. Even when Bush was in office, there was a couple times, as reported by different alternative news sources and also different intelligence sources, United States military intelligence sources, that there was almost airstrikes against Iran during the Bush administration and during that whole regime. And so it says in Thessalonians that there was peace and then comes sudden destruction. So after I read this article, I'm going to touch upon a couple biblical quotes that are associated to, you know, seemingly the day and the time and the space that we find ourselves in now. All right, so from an article called New Details Surface on Iran Nuclear Explosion. This is an exclusive WorldNet Daily, and this was released 2 days ago. It says this. Breaking update. Although the regime's rescue team drilled into the site through the entrance of the smaller elevator used by the personnel, no information is available on those trapped inside and the number of casualties or injured. Further, the International Atomic Energy Agency today, in an unusual move, made a brief statement following media reports over the weekend of significant damage at the underground Fordo uranium enrichment site. Also, just to set the premise for this, Fordo is one of the smaller nuclear enrichment sites. It only has, it has 2,700 centrifuges and is able to enrich uranium. The other site, I believe, is at Natanz, and it has 10,000 centrifuges, uranium enrichment centrifuges. This site is supposedly built under the ground, under a mountain, and is protective and not able to be bombed or reached by bunker-busting bombs or traditional, conventional, tactical weapons. And so how it is that, it was sabotaged in such a degree, but we won't know for sure, but it was bombed, according to this article, to such a degree that it is no longer, capable, not for a long time, of enriching uranium. So continuing with the article. And though IAEA officials did not make it clear as to what observation was being cited, Reuters, reporting the statement, changed its original story by midday, stating that the IAEA suggested in its comment that officials had been at the facility after the report of an explosion there. However, no official statement by the IAEA, that's the International Atomic Energy Agency, has taken place since officials' last unsuccessful trip to Tehran weeks ago when they requested to visit the suspected Parchin site. The last time IAEA inspectors were at Fordo was late last year. It also has not been allowed to install cameras at Fordo by the Islamic regime in Iran. Further details on the story. 16 North Koreans, including 14 technicians and 2 top military officers, are among those trapped at a January 21st explosion which destroyed much of Iran's Fordo nuclear site, source reveals. The source who provided the initial information on the explosion at one of Iran's most important nuclear sites has now provided details about the degree of that destruction. The report, published exclusively by WorldNet Daily January 24th, is being covered internationally by major media with independent intelligence sources confirming the explosion for the Times of London and the German Die Welt. The White House spokesman Jay Carney told reporters Monday, "We have no information to confirm the allegations in the report, and we do not believe the report is credible." The short White House response, the source said, is an indication that the U.S. wants to steer away from the subject as any covert operations against the regime's nuclear installations will have consequences, including retaliation. The Islamic regime's media, in a coordinated effort, reflected a similarly short response Sunday night in its denial and remained silent Monday. A senior researcher and director of the Center for Arab and Iranian Studies in London, Ali Reza Nourizadeh, who has many contacts in Iran, confirmed that the explosion had trapped many inside. According to WorldNet Daily source, a member of the security forces protecting Fordo, 36 North Korean technicians and military officers arrived in Tehran January 15th and 17th and subsequently visited 2 Iranian nuclear sites under heavy security. One site, still unknown to the West with its vast installation of centrifuges, will be revealed soon by WorldNet Daily. At the other, the Fordo site, the North Koreans were to witness the start-up of 6 cascades of 174 new generation speedier centrifuges. Hamidreza Zakari, a former member of the regime's intelligence ministry, said that 17 technicians and 2 military supervisors are stationed at the secret site. 14 technicians and 2 military officers were at Fordo. The source said, a log on closed-circuit cameras installed by the regime to monitor the site's 3 centrifuge chambers and 2 highly enriched uranium reserves gave this account. On January 21st, 14 members of the North Korean team and 2 military officers now stationed at Fordo, along with Iranian scientists, started the process of feeding uranium gas into the newly set up cascade 9:15 a.m. Tehran time. At 10:43 a.m., due to a drop in power pressure, system warning signs went off, but everything went back to normal after 2 minutes. At 11:36 a.m., 5 explosions occurred concurrently in the centrifuge chambers, 2 explosions in the uranium reserve enclosures, and a subsequent explosion in the main hallway close to the exit. At the time of the explosions, a very bright red and purple light distorted the image, and an extremely loud noise could be heard. Before the explosions knocked out the cameras, interior walls could be seen coming down with the centrifuge chambers. All the explosions seem to have been initiated from the ceilings. All cameras on the lowest floors, about 300 feet deep, under the mountain, and the floor above it, about 200 feet deep, were knocked out, and only 2 cameras above the installation where security personnel are stationed were working. Security forces immediately informed their superiors, who ordered them to remain in the monitoring room and avoid further communication with the outside world until counterintelligence forces arrived. 21 personnel were gathered in a conference room to await further instruction. Security forces were then told to close down all surrounding roads. Approximately 2 hours after the explosions, counterintelligence agents arrived, and after interviewing personnel and reviewing tapes, initially concluded that the explosions may have been placed in ceiling lamps with some kind of trigger mechanism controlled by a power voltage frequency. The last images show 8 personnel in anti-radiation clothing trying desperately to secure one of the rooms. The regime believes the technology used with the explosives is unknown to their forces, the source said. Iranian authorities fear that opening the site from the outside in a rescue mission could possibly release radiation and uranium gas or cause further explosions which could contaminate thousands of people living nearby. As of Monday, the regime had not come up with any concrete rescue plan. Though more than 200 people remain trapped, including the North Koreans, he added that an agreement reached last September between North Korea and Iran called for further collaboration on Iran's nuclear bomb project and the arming of missiles with nuclear warheads. Another source in the intelligence ministry said that in a meeting Monday among top officials, including President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, it was decided that the international community would be kept in the dark about the disaster because any validation would undermine the current negotiation with the 5+1 world powers. We're almost done here. And a mission also would undermine the regime within should Iranians react to its illicit nuclear activity and the international sanctions it caused, which are being felt deeply. The source added that the regime is contemplating showing old images of the interior of the site to buy time until it can accurately estimate the extent of the damage and possible loss of lives. Ahmadinejad will hold a parliamentary meeting behind closed doors on this issue Thursday. Despite severe international pressure and sanctions, Iran has refused to halt the 20% uranium enrichment process at Fordo. It takes only weeks to further enrich the stock of the 20% level to weaponization grade for a nuclear bomb. I want to comment on this here, just to give you a little bit of the background information behind what's going on. For those of you that are new to the New World Order, the way that it works, and the push worldwide by this global cadre, because that's what they are a global cadre, and they are the forces, the powers that be, that control the nations of the world. It's their particular bloodlines that sit on the thrones and as kings, prime ministers, presidents. It's these bloodlines that are the seed of the serpent that are controlling the agenda. And they are utilizing controlled opposition in order to force their agenda and to bring the world to its knees as far as this third global conflagration. And it was even hundreds of years ago, a couple hundred years ago, that when the Illuminati formed under Adam Weishaupt, in its official capacity, because the Illuminati actually goes back thousands of years, the secret societies, these Freemasonic brotherhoods, they go back to Babylon and even back to the time of Atlantis, where the separation took place among the Elohim, with the sons of Belial, the sons of darkness, establishing their secret societies, and there was the sons of the law, the sons of light, fighting against these forces. This is also mentioned in a Dead Sea Scroll called The War Between the Sons of Light and the Sons of Darkness, which, interestingly, cites this war as happening in 7 stages. And whether that's 7,000 years, who knows? But, of course, the Sons of Light win in the end. But the Sons of Darkness also have their time and their space where they rule over humanity. And we know that the powers, the principalities, the rulers of darkness, not of this world, the archons that are in control, they have specific agenda. They are establishing the premise for a strong delusion, and part of that strong delusion has to with bringing order out of chaos. And that order out of chaos means global war, global conflagration, to such a degree that all the nations of the world are decimated in the fight against one another. And it's at that time, after this grand destruction, that the Antichrist will be revealed as the man of promise, the one that has all the answers for all of the global ills, the world situation, and that he will rule through the United Nations, and that the United Nations will be the global arm of the New World Order. And all this has been established, set up, and planned for and prepared for hundreds of years. And we are at the end game. We're at the culmination to where all it takes is one match, one domino, one new Pearl Harbor, or whatever it is you want to call it, for them to push us into the madness that they so desire. Same thing with 9/11. 9/11 was utilized to bring America into what they called a never-ending war on terror. And it was also 9/11 that brought us the Patriot Act, torture, and the loss of our freedoms, our civil liberties, our morals, our values. We're now hated in the world when we used to once be looked up and held in high regard. We used to be a nation that valued its own freedoms, its own peace, its own rights and civil liberties, and we wanted to extend those things as the Constitution promises us to the other peoples and nations of the world. And that even the Cold War, communism, and capitalism, all this also was contrived, and it is controlled opposition. Much like the way that politics works in America, the left and the right, they are two sides of the same coin. They are truly just wearing masks, but they're one-party system. They support global fascism and corporate rule, which is elitist control, same as the United Nations, which was funded by the same elites. And so that's just to help you to understand what's going on, because we are being led blindly into the madness. And it's going to affect all of us, whether you believe in the New World Order or not, whether you think that the elites are united by blood. I know so many of you don't even believe that Barack Obama is related to George Bush and Dick Cheney, and that you think because one's a Republican and one's white and the other is a Democrat and he's black, that they are not united by blood and serving the same agenda. You can look it up for yourself. Everything is controlled. We have no choice. Your vote doesn't count. It doesn't matter. I wish people would quit sending their money to the different Democrats and Republican institutions. You're just funding your own demise. You got to wake up to what really is. Jazz says, I do not totally trust Alex Jones. And I think that's a good thing, Jazz. I don't trust him either. I believe he's establishment. I think he's controlled opposition. I would also say that those of you that gave such hope and put your trust in Ron Paul and Rand Paul, they are establishment too. And that the alternative media leaders, you have to be wary of many of them, because they are serving the same rulers, the same elites that funded the two-party system. And so everything is contrived. The elites control things by holding the power from top down. They establish and fund the creation of organizations like the ACLU, Anti-Defamation League, the United Nations, all these different groups which over time, gain reputation and credibility just because they've been in existence for a long time. They're controlled. And I know many of you don't believe that Ron Paul is tied to, the Masonic Brotherhood, but do your research. Even his family, they're Eastern Star, his wife is Eastern Star. They're tied to the Masonic Brotherhood and fraternities, just like all of the politicians which are at high levels, just like all of the world leaders at high levels. Watch them when they meet each other. They will do the Masonic handshakes, which is just further confirmation. I welcome Iraq and Philip. Appreciate all of you as well. Okay, so I want to touch upon some of this biblical, some of the prophecies that have been laid out in the Word, to show you how it is that these things are tied to what has been revealed to us long ago, because we know everything is going to be fulfilled that has been written in the Word. This is what it says in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. But of the times and of the seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that that day should overtake you as a thief. Ye are the children of light and the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness. Therefore let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. For they that sleep, sleep in the night, but they that be drunken are drunken in the night. For let us who are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and for an helmet the hope of salvation. Now, those of you that are familiar with the Word, that understand the prophecies, that know we're the fig tree generation, and that all the things that are said in the Word will be fulfilled in our lifetimes, and that we are going to be the generation that witnesses the second coming of the Son of Man, of the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings. You will realize that this passage is also connected to Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21. And I covered this in great detail in a show I did just recently called The Fig Tree Parable, where I explained all of this. And in that particular opening of that show, I read Matthew 24. But today I want to touch upon Luke 21 and share with you how this passage is associated to that. So, Luke chapter 21. And he looked up and he saw the rich men casting their gifts into the treasury. Oh, I want to say this also. Cairo, if you are waiting to call in, I'm going to ask you to call in 2 weeks, brother, and to share your testimony with me on that particular show after the series with Professor Truth, because I think it will be more appropriate for you to share your testimony on that show than this one. And plus, I would like to try to get through this little bit of information that I have left with the remaining time. So I appreciate you, brother, and I didn't forget you, but I'm going to request that you do that. Luke 21. He looked up and saw the rich men casting their gifts into the treasury. He saw also a certain poor widow casting hither 2 mites. And he said, Of a truth I say unto you, that this poor widow hath cast in more than they all. For all of these have of their abundance cast in unto the offerings of God, but she of her penury hath cast in all the living that she had. And as some spake of the temple, how it was adorned with goodly stones of gift, he said, As for these things which ye behold, the days will come in which there shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And they asked him, saying, Master, but when shall these things be, and what sign will there be when these things shall come to pass? And he said, Take heed that ye be not deceived, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and the time draweth near. Go ye not therefore after them. But when ye shall hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified, for these things must first come to pass, but the end is not by and by. Then said unto them, Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And great earthquakes shall be in diverse places, famines, pestilences, and fearful sights and great signs shall there be from heaven. But before all these, they shall lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and into the prisons, be brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake. and it shall turn to you for a testimony. Settle it therefore in your hearts not to meditate before what ye shall answer. For I will give you a mouth and wisdom which all your adversaries shall not be able to gainsay nor resist. And ye shall be betrayed both by parents and brethren, and kinsfolk and friends, and some of you they shall cause to be put to death. And ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. But there shall not a hair on your head perish. In your patience possess ye your souls. And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let them not that are in the countries enter thereto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, to them that give suck, in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. There shall be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's heart failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming upon the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And when shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory? And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. The next part is about the parable of the fig tree, which I already explained within the context of that particular passage that I read, and also the show that I did on the fig tree generation. But I want to read the last part. And take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and cares of this life, and so that day come upon you unaware. For as a snare shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Watch ye therefore, and pray always, that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. Okay, one other passage that I want to touch upon, and this is in Isaiah chapter 17, which is a prophecy about Damascus and the possible sudden destruction of Damascus in a nuclear exchange. It says this, and this is a prophecy that has not been fulfilled. For those of you that don't know, Damascus is one of the oldest continually inhabited and cities going back thousands of years. And it's never been destroyed, as is mentioned in this particular passage. But it says this, the burden of Damascus. Behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be a ruinous heap. The cities of Aurora are forsaken. They shall be for flocks which shall lie down, and none shall make them afraid. The fortress also shall cease from Ephraim, and the kingdom from Damascus, and the remnant of Syria, they shall be as the glory of the children of Israel, saith the Lord of hosts. And in that day it shall come to pass that the glory of Jacob shall be made thin, and the fatness of his flesh shall wax lean. It shall be as when the harvestman gathereth the corn, and reapeth the ears with his arms. And it shall be as he that gathereth ears in the valley of Rephaim. I'm going to skip just a little bit. In that day shall his strong cities be as a forsaken bough, and an uppermost branch which they left because of the children of Israel, and there shall be desolation. Because thou hast forgotten the God of thy salvation, and hast not been mindful of the rock of thy strength. Therefore shalt thou plant pleasant plants, and shalt set it with strange slips. In the day shalt thou make thy plant to grow, and in the morning shalt thou make thy seed to flourish. But the harvest shall be a heap in the day of grief and desperate sorrow. Woe to the multitude of many people which make a noise like the noise of the seas, and to the rushing of nations that make a rushing like the rushing of mighty waters. I know we're running out of time here, so I'm going to go ahead and stop. Check the chat room real quick. Psalm 91 has been mentioned. Also, I want to make one other thing as far as the passage in Luke 21, where it said that when you see Jerusalem encompassed around, that will also be a sign. And we know that all the nations of the world are also currently in the Persian Gulf, and that many of the navies of the world are in the Persian Gulf, so that it is seemingly that Israel is truly encompassed around. Even though they're there to prevent a blockade of the Straits of Hormuz by Iran, remember, the New World Order that is controlling all things, they are in process right now of gathering together, dumping all their dollar assets, dumping all their paper money, converting them into real assets. They're hoarding in silver and gold. Many of the nations of the world are doing the same. All this is a sign that we are approaching that day, time, and space where they will sound the alarm and let their people commence the slaughter. And for those that have also studied and read the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, which is a document that was put forth by the Synagogue of Satan, and it's a collaboration among all the genders, nations, and peoples of the world, because the Synagogue of Satan, the New World Order, they utilize every people, every gender, every color, every race in order to bring forth their New World Order and their agenda for global government. That it says in these documents that preparations would be made for a time and a place where all things would be established and set up so that they could destroy. They would destroy their own nations, their own currencies, their own businesses in order to bring the order out of chaos. They need to get us to accept the Antichrist as Savior. And that's part of the strong delusion. And I apologize that I wasn't able to cover more. I had a couple more passages that I wanted to talk about, but as always, we run out of time really quick. And so I appreciate all of you. I hope that you take some of this information to heart. And if you haven't done your own, with the time that you have, prepare your family, yourself, you can to put away some food and some water, whatever it is. Do what you can with the time that you have left. God bless all of you. I pray that the Lord continue to watch over you and to bless you, to guide you, and to lead you and your families to the truth and discernment that you need to protect yourselves for the things that are coming. In Yahuwah's name I pray. Amen.
Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives. So are the days of our lives. So are the days of our lives. Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives. We live
live in historic times, and it's incredible to see what's unfolding before our eyes. So many lies, so much deception. I think we're nearing the end is what I'm guessing. But as a Christian, my faith is just strengthened. Wars and rumors of wars on the horizon. And if we have to walk on the path of the valley of death, we will fear no evil, because we know that there's a sequel to the greatest story ever told without an equal. And so we speak with one voice and one vision. We walk day to day in our faith and our mission. We are a sign of the times, and like sand through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives. You all know how time flies, and Christ will return like a thief in the night. Question is, are you ready for his coming? Are you prepared? Are you scared and running? What would you run from the one who made us, who loved us enough that he would die to save us? What would you ever turn your backs on the truth? Things you never questioned in the days of your youth. It's sad but true, there's no excuse to justify disbelief when we just refuse. And Romans 1:25 says that all instead of worshiping God, they worshipped all they saw. They love material possessions, but they left them all behind at their burial procession. What's left behind is not a soul but a shadow. Think about it, what do you get in the saddle? Are you fearing God? You should be next to him without sin. All of us are guilty. There's no way we could be good enough. That's why Christ paid the price on the cross. Now that's love. Have you been rescued? Have you been saved? Have you been created after life from the grave? Ask yourself if you're ready for his coming. Are you prepared? Are you scared and running? Are you rescued? Are you saved? Have you been created after life from the grave? Tell me, friend, are you ready for his coming? Are you prepared? Are you scared and running? In the wilderness, are you hearing this? Have you repented for your sins and found forgiveness? Are you willing to give up what you call happiness? It's all really meaningless. We all die penniless. Ask yourself this: are you a witness? Are you doing your best to walk his footsteps? Are you seasoned with salt when you explain this? Unashamed to proclaim the name of Jesus. Not afraid to defend the defenseless, like red, white, and blue stands for liberty and justice. A supernatural tug of war between our free will and conscience, like a knock at a hot door. Will you walk the narrow path or the wide one? It may not be easy, but you know it's the right one. Every one of us must make this decision. This is the search for truth, not religion. In our selfish world where it's all about me, could it be that we forgot about we? Who believes anymore in humility, and that it might be better to give than to receive? In this world full of self-esteem, big hopes and dreams of being rich and have a bling bling. You think money can fix everything? When you did, you're gonna take anything? Oh, what a shame if your name's been erased from the book of life because you tore out the page. Who's to blame for the choices you made? The only time that you praise when you wish for more fame. What's the gain when your soul's been exchanged? A head full of pleasure, a heart full of pain. Have you been rescued? Have you been saved? Have you been created after life from the grave? Ask yourself if you're ready for his coming. Are you prepared? Are you scared and running? Are you rescued? Are you saved? Have you been created after life from the grave? Tell me, friend, are you ready for his coming? Are you prepared?